Reddit. What the best revenge you've ever gotten on someone? Back when I was a wee kid, we lived across from a popular public pool in a tiny street, so parking was premium. We sometimes had issues with people parking across our driveway, but we were pretty chummy with the pool owner and would just get him to put the message out over the loudspeakers and the people would come over, apologize and move their car. However, one afternoon coming home from school, this person had the audacity to park in our driveway, in our garage. My dad was dumbfounded. We went over and put the message out as per usual, and this woman in her 30s came over in a huff and said she would fix it when she had finished her exercise routine. So my dad just parked behind her and we went out for dinner for 4 hours or so. She was pissed. But the story does not end there. She kept doing it, usually 2-4 times a month. Eventually my dad would not think twice about parking her in and letting her out at his own leisure. No problem by us. Lots of problems by her. She once called the police on us, to which they just told her to not park on private property and wrote her a citation. But wait, there's more. One Saturday morning she had the gall to park us in our own driveway. Dad had had enough. He made sure she was doing her laps, grabbed a coat hanger, jimmed the car open, and dismantled the passenger seat, taking it out and leaving it on the curb in front of the pool exit. He then sat on our front deck, sipping his tea as she came out of the pool to get her car. She walked past the passenger seat without a second glance and scowled at him as she opened her car and got in. She then did a double take as she went to put her bag on the seat. She freaked out, realizing that my dad had had access to her car and belongings this entire time and done nothing about it until now. She ran over, grabbed her seat, put it in the boot and drove off. Never heard from her again. Too long didn't read. Don't duck with a man that can dismantle your car. This happened a while ago. A little bit of background. But my then girlfriend had had sex with this ex-marine guy who was a total hothead. He got kicked out because he punched his co in the face. Real ducking smart of her to get involved in, but what am I gonna do? I had to deal with him all the time. Calling her, freaking her out, showing up at her house at 3 AM. And sitting for a few hours then leaving. The kid was ducking nuts. What made it bad for me was that he was 24. I was 17 at the time. I'm pretty strong for my age, but I'm not gonna bullshit myself. There was nothing I could do against someone of his physique. He was my height and outweighed me by probably 40 pounds. Halloween of last year, he showed up when my girlfriend and I were having a fight about him. Funnily enough, he rolled into the parking lot. No ducking idea how he found us. But whatever. He got out of his car and stormed towards us. She walked over to him and told him to leave. I yelled at him to get the duck out and roll up my sleeves, ready for a rumble. And he saw this as a threat. He puffs up and yells, "Come the duck at me, you F got." I thought for a second I had had enough of this guy. It had been a year. He had been tormenting her and I. So I walked over toward him and he started getting all ready for some real Hulk smash shit to go down. I walked right past him, over to his car, opened up the driver door, and asked him to get in. He looked at me like I just asked him nicely to do something, and overcome with Neanderthal rage, he ran full speed at me. I was ducking scared, and at the last second, moved out of the way, pushing the door closed. He smashed face first into the window and did a number on the side of the car. His face was really messed up, and I didn't know whether or not he was conscious. Never having got into a physical altercation before, I was really disturbed by this and so didn't know how to act. I looked at him and did the first thing that came into my head. I spanked him over and over and said, "Leave me the duck alone." Spanking him on each word. My girlfriend stopped me and I stood up. I looked at her and said, "You wanna have his children?" They had unprotected sex. Then you deal with his childish antics. I'm ducking done with both of you. Got in my car and drove the speed limit out of there, freed of all of my baggage and heart beating like a drum. I made my old boss think I gave him herpes. I worked in a crappy factory for a while and my boss was a dick. A dick beyond dick, like fire people for no reason then go home and beat your wife dick. He was also untouchable due to his uncle owning the company. He would come down to the floor while we were at break to check our work, and he would use my gloves to do it. Made us buy our own gloves. I bought really nice comfy ones. Thought this was extremely nasty. It was the middle of summer and asked him to stop. He just shrugged. After about 3 happenings I got an idea. I grabbed an old pair of gloves, a poison ivy leaf, and a hammer. Put the poison ivy in glove and pounded away. Kept the gloves in a bag in my lunchbox till I went to lunch. Sure enough, left the poison gloves out and he used them. I came back and sure enough he used them. 2 hours later he came out to my machine, itching like crazy and red bumps all over his hands. Came right up to me. Let me see your hands. I showed him my hands. He showed me his. You didn't use my gloves, did you? I got some terrible rash on my hands from some girl at the strip club last week. No words, no looks. He just left. He left work, went to the doctor, and I hope told that exact story. Not revenge for myself exactly. Some years ago I lived next door to a horrible, feral family in Sydney that made everyone else around them miserable with theft and damage and threats of violence. This was in a row at what we call terrace housing here. The houses were just down the street from a metro station, and at 5 PM there would be a lot of people walking past. One afternoon I was standing on the veranda on the top floor eating an apple and watching the passing parade. Next door, 2 of the girls from the feral house were sitting on their front step, and one of them was eating an apple. The neighborhood had a bad reputation and people were often wary. A very timid looking girl walked by carrying her briefcase, and when she was a few meters past, the girl eating an apple threw it really hard and hit her in the middle of the shoulders. The poor thing screamed in terror and ran off down the street. I looked at my half-finished apple and thought, what the heck? And threw it as hard as I could at the whole chick sitting on the steps. Got her right on top of her head and the apple just exploded. Then I quickly jumped back so they couldn't see me and laughed my head off as quietly as possible while she and her sister totally freaked out about where that ducking apple came from. Fast revenge is good revenge. When we were kids my sister pushed a whole raw egg into my mouth while we were fighting. I threw up and pushed that into her mouth. Justice done. In 4th grade, I was really into paper plane making. I even bought this book of all the world record holding paper planes and would read it every day. I had just moved to America and wore very tacky clothing, so I was made fun of a lot. So one day I copied the design of the paper plane that had the record for longest time in the air, 13.2 seconds or something, and threw it around the playground. It was in the air for 14 seconds. As I rushed to pick it up though, this arsehole 5th grader came out and stepped on it. Now I was a tiny brown Indian kid, and he was a big hockey playing 5th grader, but the anger took over me. I punched him in the face. He bled and I ran away thinking I was in trouble. He never mentioned it to anyone though, and was always nice to me throughout middle school and high school. Too long didn't read punched in respect. I was living with a friend of mine and a girl I didn't know too well. We became friends and started hanging out a bunch. I ended up getting into a car accident on the freeway and had to move home. It took me a few days to get back to pack, and when I did most of my stuff was missing. I was furious and upset about it. The girl told me my friend had a few people over and that maybe they had taken the stuff. Well, I went to grab some boxes and pack some more while she was gone, and went into her room to snoop, and sure enough, this girl had taken over half my closet and hid it in her room, including my CDs, old antique perfume bottles my grandma had given me, down to socks and bras. WTF. So anyway, I was livid, packed all my stuff, and took all my stuff out of her room that she was trying to steal. Then went back with some black garbage bags and took all of her clothes she had hanging up and anything else I could find. Took it all to BFE and lit it on fire. She called me frantic and said she was missing all her stuff, and I told her the people that took my stuff must have took hers too. Once she knew she'd been caught, she threatened me and told me she was going to call the cops. I told her to go ahead. They wouldn't have found anything anyway. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.